Once a giant, always a giant. For me, it's only a giant.
What's going on YouTube? Biggie546. Definitely hit that subscribe button if you're new. Like the video if you like the video. And I won't tell if you click that bell. But let's go ahead and get into this. Alright, so I know it's been about a month and something since I've last been here. I mean, this year has been really crazy for me. I'm thinking now it's going to finally be stabilized now. But let's get straight into this Hard Knocks episode 2. I wanted to put out one for episode 1, but we're here for episode 2. So first off, it's just really kind of cool to see this perspective. This is the first time Hard Knocks has ever done this, and it's for somebody who really likes football from a general manager, team building perspective. I really enjoy it. And I can't wait to see even more teams, but really cool to see the Giants be the first team that this happens with. So I think first off, it was just kind of cool to just see that, you know, Shane is going through media prep. He's going through like mock questions. He's practicing his answers. So when you see a GM go out there and they give an answer that doesn't really answer anything, it's because they practiced it. So that was kind of funny. They were like, people are going to read your body language. I saw Authentic on Twitter saying that they probably were talking about him because he's always the person that's saying, like, check out Shane's body language when he said that. So that was kind of funny. But it shows that they really do look at Twitter and kind of pay attention to what the community is saying before they, you know, go out there and do a conference. They're actually taking into account everything. So that was interesting to see that they actually go through that prep. And then, of course, probably the topic of this entire, you know, off-season Hard Knocks is going to be Saquon Barkley. I mean, that's really just your overlaying topic. I mean, some of your larger topics are going to be Saquon. There's going to be Daniel Jones and if he was going to be replaced or not. And then there's going to be Brian Burns trade, which they've already touched on all of those. But let's start off with Saquon. And it seems like, first off, Brandon Brown. Well, I'll get to Brandon Brown later. But Joe Shane, I don't think Joe Shane dislikes Saquon, but I think after their initial negotiations, I think that Joe Shane is sort of kind of fatigued, and he believes that there's nothing that he's going to be able to give Saquon that's reasonable that Saquon would accept. So that clip that we saw where he was like, are you going to let us respond, or are you just not going to give us a chance? That was kind of billed at the beginning to be like, this is the offer and we're not getting a chance to match it. But it was that was all said preemptively from Joe Shane. Like, that was said before any of this ever happened. So that was interesting there. But it seems like he just doesn't want to negotiate with Saquon because he already knows how it's going to end. He doesn't want to pay him. I don't know what the number is, but he doesn't want to pay him that number. He said that he offered Saquon a bunch of money last year and he turned it down. So for whatever reason, they weren't able to come to an agreement last year. And this year, it just kind of seemed like they were both disinterested. When they were talking on the phone, it just seemed like they didn't really care too much for each other. Saquon seemed to appreciate that he said, I'm going to let you hit the market. But it's also confirmation. It's like, Saquon is like, they already don't appreciate me. And now they're saying they're going to let me hit the market, which, you know, on one side is letting Saquon weigh all his options, get the best deal possible for him. And on the other side, it's just saying, listen, we're willing to lose you. We're willing to let you walk if something happens and we can't match it. We're willing to lose you. And I think that right there was like the nail in the coffin for Saquon. And I don't blame Joe Shane because I wasn't in the camp of a team at this point in their process to let Saquon Barkley command that type of money where you're paying him $16 million a year, 15. I just didn't think we could go there. And I completely understand Joe Shane, and who knows how much he offered Saquon last year. But, I mean, I understood both sides there. I understood both sides. So, it was time for a split, and Saquon went where he got the most money, which makes the most sense. I mean, Joe Shane said, does Saquon want to be a legacy Giant? Does he want to go in the Ring of Honor? Or does he want to go somewhere else for $1 million more? I think he probably went someplace for more than $1 million more. But listen, folks, a lot of times we look at these deals and us as fans and him as a GM says, You're going to do this over $1 million? How many times have you all heard questions where someone says, what would you do? Would you do this for $1 million? Would you do that for $1 million? I'm sorry. I cannot be mad at these players for not passing up $1 million. That's a lot of money. Even $600,000 is a lot of money. Now, once you factor in taxes and everything, but you're already in New York, which is high taxes, New Jersey. So it's just something you have to think about. And I can't blame a guy for wanting more money. But at the same time, Saquon, I hope you don't succeed as an Eagle because I hate everybody on the team. When he makes good plays, will I cheer at times? Maybe. But at the same time, I mean, listen, I'm not rooting for you on the Eagles. Sorry about that. I don't hope you have a bunch of good games and bad games against us. I just can't root for you. I just can't do it. Not on the Eagles. So let's move past the Saquon thing. Something that I noticed to start this off is Brandon Brown, our assistant GM, does not like Daniel Jones. He just doesn't. Every time they mention the quarterback situation, he's clearly pushing to replace Daniel Jones. And when they're talking about not replacing him, you see him visibly get upset. You see him visibly make a face like, oh, here we go with this. And that's kind of funny to me. I don't know if Brandon Brown just didn't get the memo that they all had to fake, but Brandon Brown clearly is not a fan of Daniel Jones. I think a couple of episodes ago, or the first episode, he made a couple of faces when they were talking about that, when Joe Shane was like pounding on the table saying, we paid him. He's got to, he didn't like that last week. And then this week he said, with Malik Neighbors, my only problem is the QB going to be able to, basically, in a roundabout way, he pretty much said, is Daniel Jones going to be able to get Malik Neighbors the ball and not make Malik Neighbors disgruntled as a receiver? And that's the same thing that Twitter and a lot of Giants fans have been saying is, who's going to throw Malik Neighbors the ball? And will that sort of disrupt the chemistry in the locker room? Because you have an alpha wide receiver who wants to get the football early and often, and a quarterback who has issues getting the ball to people when they're open downfield. And it's just a fact, people. I can show you on film. But nonetheless, this is a quarterback who's had issues there. And would that stir up some drama in the locker room? And that's kind of what Brandon Brown alluded to when they were looking at Malik Neighbors at the combine. So that stood out to me. And then the next thing, following up in the quarterback spot, is a lot of Giants fans said, no, that was all smoke. Joe Shane is smoke and mirrors. It's smoke and mirrors. It's a puppet show. Everybody tried to say that. But the Giants were definitely trying to move up into the top three. They were 100% trying to move up into the top three, because we saw it in 4K. And on top of that, I would say I would bet I bet everything. I bet everything I could grab hold of to say that they were moving up to 3 to take Drake May. Everybody's been ranting and raving on Twitter about how impressive Drake May was in the interview and a little bit that we saw. And Drake May was clearly going to be there at 3. They knew it was Caleb Williams, then Jaden Daniels. So Drake May was clearly going to be there at 3. And Joe Shane jogged across the stadium to talk to the Patriots and say, listen, keep me in the back. He basically begging them, like, please consider us. Please consider us. We're at 6. We would love to move up to 3. Do you really think they're moving up to 3 to take Joe Alt? Did you see the way that they raved about Rome Odunze? Do you really think that they were moving up to 3 to take Malik Neighbors when they could just sit at 6 and know that they're going to get Rome Odunze? Do you really think they were moving up to 3 to take Marvin Harrison Jr.? Really? Because he's that much better than the other 2 receivers, and you don't have to move up and waste picks to move up for him. So they were 100%, in my opinion, moving up to take Drake May. You just can't convince me otherwise. I'm sure some people can do a lot of gymnastics to try to do something that doesn't make sense, but they were moving up to 3 to take a quarterback. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, and you saw Dable, I mean, in the meeting room, he really liked Drake May too. But moving on, they keep alluding to this Burns trade. It's coming up soon. We're going to actually see that get done. But you saw it started off with they were saying it'll probably take a 1+. That's what they were saying in the Giants room. I'm forgetting, Josh Morgan, I think that's his name, or Dan Morgan, Carolina Panthers said that, you know, you want to take 2 ones to take Brian Burns off our hands and pay him $29 million, which we ended up doing. But it started off with 2 ones, and now he's saying you want to give us 2 twos. That's what Joe Shane mentioned. And he was talking to him, and he said it would take 2 twos. And we're eventually going to see that come down from 2 second-round picks to a 2nd and a 5th, which is a steal, in my opinion. I know we had to pay him, but I think it's also a steal. I just think that deal was done so well, and it makes a lot of sense that we were able to get him that way. I mean, you got to pull the trigger if you have that type of opportunity. So that trade was amazing. And then we also see that the other guy that they were considering was Christian Wilkins, who a lot of people were like, you know, the Giants got his report completely wrong because they were saying that he wasn't really a pass rushing threat. Well, obviously they did. Obviously they did think he was that, and that guy must have misspoke because they were going to pay him $21 million a year. And you don't pay a defensive tackle $21 million a year unless you think he can rush the passer. So they were thinking of Christian Wilkins, and they were thinking of Brian Burns, and ultimately they went with Brian Burns, as we know. But that would have been kind of cool to see Christian Wilkins and Dex together again, like they played in college. And I think they would have been a really, really great tandem. But I think at the end of the day, we got the more important player, a younger player, and I think a better player at a more premium position. And then lastly, something else that stood out was Malik Neighbors. Now, I already kind of touched on that, but they were concerned about his demeanor. They were like, if he doesn't get the ball, is he going to throw a tantrum? Is he gonna be a problem? Because he's a guy that comes across as a really, you know, as people want to say, a diva. That's what they were thinking because of his attitude on the field. And like I said, as an LSU fan, Malik Neighbors was the wide receiver too for like 2 years, behind Kayshon Boutte, and he was there. I mean, he did his thing. He fit into his role. He was not, you know, throwing fits that he wasn't getting enough targets. He was doing his thing. So I have no qualms with Malik Neighbors, whether it's him going to the club and throwing money. I'm not going to say what type of club because I don't know if YouTube will demonetize it, but whether him throwing money in the club or doing whatever, Malik Neighbors is not going to be a character problem. And they quickly found that out. They were like, when he came in, they were like, he's kind of reserved, he's kind of relaxed. And that's the Malik Neighbors that you've seen at LSU for years. I don't think that's going to be an issue as far as anything. And the funny thing is, Dable asked him in the meeting, he said, what if you don't get the ball early on in games? And he said, I'm going to take that rough. And Dable said that he wants that in his receivers. You know, he fit with Stephon Diggs. So he obviously does want that type of receiver that wants the ball early and often. And it seems like that's a fit. And Neighbors was able to communicate that in a way of saying, like, I'm not going to wreck the team, but I do want the football. And I like that. I think there's no alpha all-time great receiver that didn't want the football every single play. You got to have that. So Daniel, be ready to get that man the football this year. And then lastly, Odunze came across like really mellow. I mean, he seemed like he was really committed, but I just didn't see that fire that you see in Neighbors' eyes. I just didn't see it in Odunze's eyes. Not to say he won't be a good player, but I think Neighbors is going to be a great NFL player. And that's all I have. Those are my biggest takeaways from Hard Knocks episode 2. I'm glad to be making a video today. Like I said, my life has been hectic and it's finally slowing down. So I'm thinking I'll be able to get on here at least a couple times a week. And then, of course, during the season, doing my thing. I'm thinking of putting out like a couple of film sessions on some players before the season. So I'll try to keep things interesting. You all have a great rest of your day. If you made it this deep into the video, come on, just hit the subscribe button. I make Giants content primarily, draft content secondarily, and during the season, I'm going to be doing a lot of reacting to pretty much most of the NFL games and everything NFL. So if you made it this deep, go ahead and join the D6 squad.